It was just one of those days where we had nothing better to do, so my buddy Luke and I decided to go check out this creepy abandoned house on the outskirts of town. So here's the story. It was one of those fall days here in New England where the leaves have just started to change and it was crisp outside and sunny. So Luke and I were just looking for something fun to do. We didn't have anything going on. School wasn't too stressful at the time. We weren't working any jobs. We were just kind of killing time before winter break actually started, and we were just driving around and came across this really old house on the edge of town that we'd never seen before. And it was like set back from the road with these giant trees in front of it, and it just looked really creepy. And we thought, let's just check it out. There was a decent-sized yard, and the house itself was surrounded by these huge trees which were probably planted at the same time the house was built. But what struck us both was how far gone the place was, like it was almost entirely caved in. There were parts of the roof caved in and there was just debris everywhere. We pulled up into the driveway and there was no sign of life. We knocked on the door and called out, but obviously no one answered. Then we walked around to the side of the house and saw some bricks had fallen away from the chimney and the whole thing was just leaning precariously to one side. And then we noticed footprints in the wet dirt underneath the chimney, and it looked like they were fairly fresh. Like not so much that they were perfectly indented into the ground, but they were definitely there. So we got curious. I mean, our intentions weren't to sneak into the house. We just wanted to check it out because we were curious about who lived there and what happened to them. Apparently 40 years earlier, the family that lived there just disappeared without a trace. Their car was found abandoned down by the docks and their bodies were never recovered. There were all these rumors that maybe they were involved in mob activity and maybe they got whacked or something. But anyways, since we were there already, we thought we might as well take a look around and see if there was anything left inside. That may explain what happened to them. So we climbed up on the porch and onto the roof. Some of the wood was loose, so we stepped carefully, trying not to make too much noise. And there was a window that we could reach through on the second floor, so we pushed it open and climbed through. The air inside was heavy and stale. There was a weird, sweet smell like rotting fruit, and as we went further inside, we could feel the temperature dropping as well. The walls were covered with black mold and the wallpaper was peeling off in large sections. There were a few rooms on that floor, but none of them had anything left in them except for dust and cobwebs. So we figured whoever had lived here must have taken most of their stuff with them when they left. Luke and I split up and started checking out different rooms. He went downstairs while I went upstairs, and the whole house was filled with these long, awkward hallways with doors off of them leading to rooms that we couldn't get into, because the walls had completely collapsed. As I was walking up the stairs, I heard a noise that sounded like footsteps in the floor above me. And I stopped and listened, but it didn't happen again. So I shrugged it off and kept walking. Upstairs was just like the rest of the house, totally abandoned. There was one room at the end of the hallway that had a door on it, and I opened it thinking maybe there would be something interesting in there, like maybe some documents with the name of the people who lived here or something, but there was nothing except for cobwebs and a single lit candle on a table. It was a really big house and there was a lot of it that was still intact, so it made me wonder how someone could have lived here and just up and vanished. As I was walking down the hallway, I could have sworn I heard a whisper. I stopped and listened and it happened again. I distinctly heard someone say my name. At first I thought, maybe it was Luke, but he was supposed to be downstairs. Then I realized he probably wouldn't be calling my name. And if he was up here, I probably wouldn't be able to hear him over the creaking of the house. Anyways, curiosity got the best of us, and even though we were both a little freaked out, we kept looking around. There was one room at the end of the hall with a closed door, and I could hear what sounded like footsteps coming from behind it, so I cracked the door open and walked in. It was a child's bedroom, or at least it had been at some point. There was a desk against one wall with a rocking horse in the corner. There were a couple of drawings on the wall that were still hanging on by a thread, and there was a closet against the far wall with the door hanging off of its hinges. I don't remember what made me do it, but I guess I just got curious and I opened the closet door. Inside was just more darkness and what sounded like shuffling. I reached out with my hand to try to find the light switch and felt something soft and squishy under my fingers. I pulled my hand back and stared at it for a second and realized that it was a doll. It was one of those rag dolls with yarn hair that you can buy at craft stores, and it was just hanging out in the closet. But then I noticed a bunch of other dolls hanging out there as well, all handmade with different materials and mismatched clothing. But the weirdest part was that they were all hanging upside down. And then I noticed that one of the drawings on the wall was of a girl who looked identical to the dolls. She was drawn with long flowing hair, but the hair in the drawing was crossed out, and there was another drawing of her that showed her hanging upside down. The room was filled with these kinds of drawings. The closet was filled with these dolls, and as I was standing there staring at them, I could have sworn that I heard the sound of breathing coming from behind me. I turned around quickly and saw nothing. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway outside the door. I knew Luke was downstairs and I hadn't heard him come up the stairs, so I cracked the door open a little wider and started listening. I could hear footsteps getting closer. I hid in the closet and waited until I heard the door open and footsteps coming towards me. I shut my eyes and squeezed my hand into a fist, waiting for whatever was coming to find me. But then the footsteps just kept walking past the door. I opened the closet door and walked out and saw Luke standing in the hallway with a terrified look on his face. He was holding something in his hands and he dropped it to the floor. He was pale as a ghost and his eyes were wide. And he said, "We need to get out of here right now." So we ran out of that house as fast as we could. We didn't stop running until we were well out of sight of the house. And once we were finally out of breath, we looked back and saw that something was following us. It looked like one of the dolls from the closet, and it was hanging upside down from the tree, dangling just a few feet from where we were standing. I swear it was there when we were in the closet. We started screaming and making tons of noise and the thing just sat there in the tree. So we ran as hard as we could until we were out of sight of that house. We never went back, and we never told anyone about what we saw. Sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night and I can't sleep, I think about that house and the dolls in the closet and I wonder if maybe we should have stayed in that closet.